Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a chatty kind of catch-up video, just going over my end of 2023 reading wrap up, my plans and goals for 2024, and just updating you on what I've been reading recently, what I'm currently reading, that kind of stuff. So I thought I would start with just going over my 2023 reading. To be honest, I don't really track any statistics. I don't really find them to be that interesting for me personally, but I do use Goodreads quite a lot, so I will always track what I'm reading on there. I also have different shelves for what I own physically, what I want to buy, what's on my Kindle, that kind of stuff. My Goodreads is always linked in the description box, so if you want to check that out, you can. But I thought I would just go over some basic things from 2023. So my goal was to read 50 books, and I actually ended up reading 60, which I was really happy with. It is slightly less than I have read in the last 2 years, I think. I read around 70 books then, but I'm still really happy with 60 books because yeah, I didn't expect to be reading that much this year because it's been really busy. My average rating for 2023 was 3.6 stars, which again I think is pretty good. I don't know what my average has been previously, but yeah, I've enjoyed most things that I've read this year. I didn't give out a single 1-star rating this year. I did give out a few 2 stars. I said in my best books of 2023 that I would mention some of them here, so let me just find them. So I gave Eileen 2 stars, which was featured in my most recent reading vlog. I gave The Last Housewife 2 stars, which I think I mentioned in my last wrap up, so I will link that if you want to hear me rant about that book. I also recently moved Tom Felton's memoir down to a 2-star, so again I will link my wrap up where I talk about that one. I gave Daisy Darker 2 stars, which was very disappointing because I've loved every single one of Alice Feeney's books that I've read so far. So yeah, that one was really unexpected, and I'd read that one for Summerween, so I'll link those vlogs down below as well. I gave The Memory Police 2 stars. Again, I'll link the wrap up if you want to hear more. The Neighbour, I think I gave that 3 initially, but then I moved it down to 2 stars. That's all the 2 stars that I gave. The rest of them were 3s, 4s and 5s. Let me just count how many 5 stars I got. So my first 5-star was my reread of the 5th season. I also gave my reread of The Obelisk Gate a 5-star. I think I moved it up from a 4 the first time I read it. The Appeal got a 5-star. I'm Glad My Mum Died got a 5-star. Next up was True Crime Story and My Dark Vanessa, which are my top 2 books from 2023. The next 5-star was Project Hail Mary, which again I think was maybe number 3 or 4 on my list. Looking Glass Down was another 5-star. And then the last 5-star that I gave this year was my reread of Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, which was the last book that I read in 2023. So in total that means that I have 6 books that I gave 5 stars that were not rereads, and the 3 rereads that I had this year were also 5 stars. I actually thought I had more 5 stars than 6, which is what, 10% of the total books that I read? Well, not including the rereads. That's quite interesting. I think I had quite a few 4.5s as well. So whilst we're on the topic of Pretty Girls, I thought I would just talk about it here because I think I've mentioned it quite a few times on my channel, but I read it before I started filming videos. I read it 8 years ago now, so it was 2016. I remember being 19 years old in my old uni room and just absolutely sobbing over it. I was obsessed, and it quickly became my favourite book. I've been meaning to reread it for a while, but I've always been a bit worried that because it's a mystery thriller and I know, well, I thought I knew a lot of what the plot points were going to be again, obviously. I thought that it wouldn't be as good. I thought that maybe it seemed really good because I didn't read a ton when I was 19, but I decided to read it just after Christmas, like that period between Christmas and New Year, and I loved it just as much the second time round. So I did tab like a tiny little bit of this book, but the blue tabs here, so there's 5 in total, are all the times that I cried. So we've got like, what, one every like 100 pages or so, so they're nice and evenly spread out. But oh my god, this book, it broke me the same all over again. There was actually a surprising amount of this book that I'd completely forgotten. There were some scenes that stayed with me, but I thought the most interesting thing about this book is the aspect of it that made me cry the most, I'd completely blocked out, and like I completely forgot that this was a part of the book. It's what made me cry every time. So I thought it was quite weird that my brain had just decided to block that out, even though that was like the most hard-hitting part for me the first time I read it and the second time. But this book is about two sisters who have not spoken for a really long time, and their older sister disappeared when they were younger and they've never found out what happened to her. Anyway, these two sisters come back together because one of them goes through a tragedy right at the start of the book, and it's basically these two sisters just digging into the past, trying to figure things out. And it's a lot about siblings and sisterhood, but also there's some very dark, disturbing content in here. Some of it is quite graphic and upsetting, but I think the saddest part of this book for me was this other perspective that we get throughout, and that's the bit that really stuck a knife in my heart. So I'm really happy to say that I still loved it, and I'm still happy to call it like one of my favourite books of all time. So yeah, I loved rereading this. Next up, I thought I would show you some of the books that I got for Christmas, and also one that I bought myself recently. So the first two that I want to show you are from my sister-in-law. So the first one that she got me is Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. This is another one of my favourite books. I read it a few years ago, and it really reminded me of like a modern classic dystopia like 1984, Brave New World, that kind of thing. But in this society, animals have contracted this disease, which means that humans can no longer eat them. So humans have now resorted to cannibalism and basically farming humans for meat instead. So we're following this guy who works in one of the plants, like the processing plants, and it's told in this very deadpan way, and the way that it describes what is happening to these humans is just horrific. And even though I think I gave this book a 4.5 star at the time, I remember it as like a 5-star read. So I'm really excited to read this one again and to have my own copy of it. I'm going to add it to my horror stack here. And the other book she got me was Mrs. March by Virginia Fito. This is about a woman who lives an exquisitely controlled existence, but one morning on a visit to her favourite patisserie, she suffers a horrifying indignity. The shopkeeper remarks that the detestable protagonist of her husband's latest novel must surely be based on Mrs. March herself. Thus begins an increasingly paranoid journey, one that may well uncover both a killer and some long-buried secrets from Mrs. March's past. So I really like the cover for this book, and this sounds really fun. The back of the book mentions that it's a claustrophobic psychological thriller. It's got horror-tinged twists, and it's got lots of suspense in it. So yeah, I'm going to read this one very soon because it sounds so fun. One that I bought myself recently is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This has been on my TBR for a while now. I think my friend recommended it to me because she knows that I'm a little bit funny with romance, and she thought that I might enjoy this one. And I found this one in the works for £3, and I really like the cover. I like the spine. I love the pink and green together. I don't even know what this one's really about. I just know that it's a romance. Oh, it looks like a second chance romance. Okay, so she runs into her first love again, and I think it just like throws everything into mayhem because she's meant to be getting married to this older guy. I read Happy Place by Emily Henry last summer, and that was a second chance romance as well, and I really enjoyed that, so hopefully I will like this one as well. Sorry if I sound really bunged up. I think my allergies are really bad today, even though I've had a allergy tablet, but whatever. I guess that's what I get for having 3 cats when I'm allergic to them. The next 2 books that I've got are books from my boyfriend. So the first one that I have is this absolutely gorgeous edition of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So this is the Mina Lima edition, and it's become a little bit of a tradition now for my boyfriend to buy me these books whenever it's my birthday or for Christmas, whenever they come out. And this one's beautiful. I think this one is my favourite of them all. I'm obsessed with the blue and the purple, and also this is my favourite Harry Potter book. The 3rd and the 4th are definitely the best ones, so I'm so happy to have this. So if you don't know what these books are, they're absolutely gorgeous hardback books. Each chapter has a little illustration. There's some pop-ups as well, so like this is the Monster Book of Monsters, and you can like pull tabs and make them move, and they're just so beautiful and so fun. And I think when he bought me the first one, I said I was hopefully going to save it till potentially if we have kids one day and I was going to read it to them, but I do think I'm due a reread soon because I feel like it's been a few years since I read them, and I would love to read these. So yeah, I absolutely can't wait. Like, look how stunning. Oh, they're just beautiful. So I'm very grateful for him for that. And then the other book that he got me this year was House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This has been on my TBR since 2020, and for some reason this autumn I've been desperate to read it, and I just really wanted a copy. But if you see this book, you know that you have to own it physically, and when I was looking for second-hand editions, they were quite expensive. I did get it from the library just to like see what it was like for real, and we both said, yeah, I'm gonna have to have my own copy because I'm gonna want to write all over it, put loads of tabs in it and stuff like that. So this is my current read at the minute. I'm not that far in. I think I'm like, well, I'm 74 pages into the main story, but then I have also like read some of the appendix stuff that you're meant to flip to. I've got 2 tabs here for the appendixes. I had to decode this letter, so here's the letter here, and yeah, I wouldn't be able to do this to a library book, so I'm really glad that he got me this. But essentially this book starts with what is called the Navidson record, and it's been written by this guy called Zampano, who's now died, and this guy called Johnny has basically found Zampano's manuscript and he's reading it. So we've got Zampano's work, we've got some of his footnotes, then we've got Johnny's footnotes, and then we've got an editor reading it as well, and their footnotes too. So it's very confusing to read because you'll just be reading this really dense like academic text, and then all of a sudden you'll get like a footnote from Johnny which goes on for like 3 pages, and then you've got to flick back to where you were with the actual Navidson record, and then it'll say, oh, skip to the appendix to see this picture or to read this poem. So it's very confusing and it's taken me a while to read. I did start it like a week ago, and yeah, I just feel like I'm not making any progress, but I'm really excited to get a bit deeper into this and finally kind of understand what's happening, because the first bit of it is quite dense. It reads like I'm at university reading like an academic journal. It's just quite difficult but I am enjoying the journey so far. So that's all the books that I got recently, and I thought I would just wrap up the video by talking about 2024 and what I want to achieve this year. I mean, I say that I don't really want to set many reading goals because I want reading to stay fun and I don't want to put a lot of pressure on myself to tick off certain things. So I'm going to keep it very simple this year. My reading challenge, I've set it again to 50 books, but hopefully I'll be able to beat that again. Some of my goals for this year are to firstly read all of the books that I added to my TBR in 2020. So there's only 4 of them, so I should definitely be able to do this. One of them is House of Leaves, which I'm currently reading. So the other 3 books are Miracle Creek by Angie Kim, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, which I did start last night very sort of briefly. I only read like a few pages, but I'm going to continue with that. And Last Exit to Brooklyn by Hubert Selby Jr. So I want to get all of those books read this year because I cannot have these books on my TBR for more than 4 years. That is just a joke. I want to continue cutting down my want to read that's on Goodreads. So at the minute I've got 140 books in there. I would like to get it to as close to like 100 as I can by the end of the year. So the ways that I do that is obviously by reading as much as I can, but also going through my TBR every so often and just double checking that I actually do want to read those books. So I did a recent cull, which I talked about in one of my last videos, and then I did another one as well and got rid of about 10 books. So I just want to keep up with that. What else do I want to do? I want to buy some more books secondhand so that I can do rereads. So with a lot of the books that I read, say on my Kindle or from the library that were my favourites, I don't have a copy of them, but I would really like to have that. For the last few years I've been keeping a shelf on Goodreads for books that I want to buy that I have already read, and at the minute there's like 22 books on there, so I would like to slowly start buying those so that I have them on my shelves, just because I've always wanted like not a full collection of everything that I've read, but a collection of my favourite books, the books that I gave 4-star and above, because A, I can see myself rereading them, and B, because I would love to be able to lend those books out if somebody wanted to read them, and just so that I have a visual reminder of what I've read and loved. So that is something that I would like to do this year especially. Another goal that I have is to read some of my older physical TBR. So there's some books on my TBR shelf downstairs that have been there for years, and I have recently got rid of quite a few of them, but there's a few left. One that I can think of off the top of my head is The Devil in the Dark Water. I bought that when I first started doing like booktube and reading, so that one definitely needs to be read soon. There's just a few others that I'm sick of seeing on that shelf, and I would love to bring them upstairs to my read bookshelf. Other than that, I don't really have any goals for reading. I'm such a mood reader. I would rather just pick what I fancy in the moment rather than track it too heavily, because I feel like that takes some of the fun out of it. The only other thing that I want to do is keep up with a semi-regular video schedule. I'm not going to set a video schedule because I work shifts and it's very hard to set in stone when I'm able to do things. I often have to work late when I'm not expecting to, so it's not feasible to set a schedule as such, but I would like to post at least one video every 2 weeks and then more if I can. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't a lot, but it's probably the best I can do. So that's all I've really got to say for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this more sort of relaxed, chatty, casual video. Let me know if you enjoyed it and give it a like if you did. Comment down below how your 2024 reading is starting out, and subscribe if you want to see more. I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!